Now,
on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
It is 5:07 on News Talk 105.9 WMAL. You are listening to O'Connor and Company. It's Patrice Onwuka, your usual Friday gal, filling in for Larry today. But your usual Thursday gal, Mercedes Schlapp, is here with me. Good morning, Mercedes.
Patrice, good morning. It's like the girls, instead of the girls' night out, it's like the girls' day out. Right?
I agree.
None of the boys are here, so you guys, all you guys out there are going to just have to listen to Patrice and I, hopefully, and we're going to have a lot of fun this morning.
We absolutely will. Well, let's give everybody the lineup at 7:05. Carrie Pickett from the Washington Times. She's going to give us the big update on the big news. FBI Director Chris Wray resigning. 7:35. Lieutenant Colonel Stuart Scheller, a U.S. Former Marine who was in prison for criticizing the military brass. He'll be here to talk about everything going on with the military right now. 8:05. Our usual KT McFarland will be here to give us an update on some of the different nominations. And then at 8:35, Virginia Attorney General Jason Mayoris will be joining us. All right, well, Mercedes, I think there's lots to get into, but thanks everybody for jumping on board with the O'Connor and Company ride this morning. Let's start off with some Trump news. I think this is the biggest news. I think it is well-deserved. President Trump has been named the man or the person of the year by Time magazine. This is coming out today. Politico was just reporting it yesterday. Not surprisingly, for a man who has not just been reelected with a sweeping majority, sweeping all of the swing states, taking the House, the Senate, and obviously the White House, a lot of governorships as well. He survived 2 assassination attempts and lawfare. Mercy. I mean, obviously, this was a no-brainer, right?
Well, you're talking about that you went from Taylor Swift last year to President Trump this year. I mean, who would have ever thought? Now, with that being said, I just think Trump should just buy Time magazine, okay? Like, seriously, should become Trump magazine. I think that would be a really good, significant change there. But, I got to say, it's... I think people to understand that this is the redemptive story, the story of a man who was down and out, a man who had to suffer the lawfare from the Department of Justice, from these federal prosecutors. I mean, there was a time that I remember talking to lawyers. I know you did the same, where they were saying, I don't know how he's going to get out of this one. He's going to end up in jail by the end of the year. The mere fact that he was able to have this incredible victory. I was telling you that Matt and I were out in the town yesterday, which we don't do very often, Patrice, because God only knows.
I'm surprised. I mean, you guys own DC. Everybody knows you. You're everywhere.
But it was funny. We were down in the streets, and it was literally like I almost felt I could hear besides the fact that talk about it being cold. It was freaking freezing last night with the wind blowing, and this guy was in his green velvet, Christmassy outfit. He was a little tipsy, and he walks over and he's like, isn't it just great? This is so awesome. You could tell there's a shift happening here in Washington, D.C. But to know that President Trump, he was, to be recognized. I mean, it's a nice recognition. Time magazine has gotten a little better in terms of their coverage. But he beat out, obviously, well, not surprising, Kamala Harris.
Yes.
He beat out Kate Middleton. Elon Musk, which we know is like the adoptive son of
that
President
would have been a
Trump.
Good competitor so far, of the ones you've named so far.
If Elon would have gotten it over President Trump, I think President Trump at that time would have been like, Elon, you need to take a break, okay? I need a break. And I mean, Elon Musk, who's completely amazing between what he does as a businessman and, now I would say as a political advisor as well to President Trump. And then you've got Benjamin Netanyahu also on the short list for Time Person of the Year. And so there you have it. They're President Trump, after working at McDonald's, working in a garbage truck.
Right. Yes.
Really nonstop, basically never stops working. Now Time Magazine, Time Person of the Year. And he's in New York City now. He's going to ring the opening bell of the New York Stock Exchange this morning. which is very exciting for him.
I mean, it is. I think that the fact that he's going to the New York Stock Exchange, obviously we've seen a lot of the economic indicators. Consumers are optimistic again. Small businesses are optimistic again because they know that President Trump is going to usher in deregulation, tax cuts, and by improving energy production, drop energy prices, which feed into all of the prices. So, I mean, I think there's a broader optimism. I'll reclaim the word joy, Mercy, but there's real hope and optimism that this country can turn around. And we know that 70% of Americans, that includes a lot of Democrats and the leftists, who know that the country has been on the wrong track. And now here is this man who beat so many odds, as we talked about. I mean, how much when you calculate the time he spent in courtrooms this year alone,
my Lord,
just fighting the ridiculous charges against him. Everything was stacked against him. You had small two-bit lawmakers in states trying to boot him off of ballots in their states. All of these things that he fought against, and I don't think we'll see what the Time article actually says. I hope they go through this litany of things that hurdles he overcame, as we were talking about. I hope that they capture this, because so much happened in just 1 year that really makes him the man of the year.
And, think about the aggressiveness that he's had to face with so many of the fake news outlets, whether it be the New York Times, NBC, the Washington Post, I think, being one of the worst. These people tried to kill him off. They literally tried to kill off President Trump, trying to make it sound like he was the most dangerous man in the world. Think about that. And there you have it, that all of a sudden there's been, I think, almost a cultural change in our country. The tides have turned, where all of a sudden you see the Trump dance, at effect at the NFL, around the Thanksgiving dinner table. And what's fascinating is not only has he become, they always say, well, how do you get picked for Person of the Year? And it's the way they explain it is like the newsmaker, right? Who's had significant impact on the year's events. Well, there's no question that President Trump has not only dominated the media narrative, but turned the tables on the media, and then been able to effectively sell, effectively be so impactful, even just by getting elected, where he's meeting with these international leaders, setting the vision for America. And you're already starting to feel the impacts, especially when you know that in the White House right now, I mean, God only knows. It's like an empty place. Like there's no one really
who's making the decisions up there. Meanwhile, the world is on fire, and so I 100% agree with you, Mercedes. There's optimism, there's hope, there is a turning of a page, and President Trump deserves all the credit. We're going to have some more intrigue and some more updates on some of the different nominations from President Trump. We had a slew of them last night, so we'll continue to talk about that, plus a little bit of gossip that we'll get into in the Trump orbit and in the Trump world. But right now it's 5:15 WMAL, traffic and weather every 10 minutes. First on the fives. Good morning, Jamie Whitten in the Hadid Carpet Cleaning. So Mercedes, we've got some, as I mentioned, we have a slew of different nominations that came out last night, including one that's getting a lot of attention today. Kari Lake. She's going to be heading Voice of America. We know Kari Lake was a Republican Senate nominee or candidate in Arizona. Unfortunately, she did not make it over the hurdle this time around, and President Trump is now tapping her to head the taxpayer-funded, very leftist Voice of America. Do you think she's going to bring some needed change there?
Look, I think, first of all, there was talks for Kari Lake at one point could be picked as the ambassador to Mexico. That job was given to Ambassador Ron Johnson, someone who he was ambassador to El Salvador, has been in the CIA for a long time, a great man, and will be excellent at that job. For Kari Lake, we were just with her in CPAC, Argentina. They absolutely loved her there. And she is an incredibly effective communicator. And the problem with Voice of America right now is that it's antiquated, right? They use the things of the past to try to make these connections and spread the basically America freedom message across the globe. It's not really effective. It's not really working. To your point, there's a lot of kind of leftist journalists that are stuck in the bureaucracy there. I mean, it needs to be cleaned out. It needs to be updated from a technological standpoint. So I think she's going to have her work cut out. And I do think she's going to have a great, I think she's going to be able to effectively basically position America in a strong way, because remember, like for other countries, where they get their news, American news, quote unquote, from CNN International. So think about the perception that they're given about Donald Trump and how horrible we all are, and how dangerous we all are. And I think that's really a big problem, especially as we've traveled through in CPAC to these different countries. They're always like, we have the fake news like you guys have the fake news. So it's how are you going to be reaching out to these other countries that need to hear the message? How are you going to do it from a technological standpoint? I'll tell you, like in Cuba, when they're trying to send signals into the communist island, there's no way to get there the way they do it right now. There's no way that message, based on my sources, that they're getting into Cuba. And so you're not really being effective with making sure that it's getting to the right people as well.
So there's an opportunity here listen, we know a lot of these nominees are brought in to be disruptors. And if there is a disruptive person who can disrupt the news, I think it's going to be Carrie Lake at Voice of America.
Yes.
Let's shift over to another nominee, Pete Hegseth. I know we've talked a lot about his nomination process. It was getting bumpy for him as the allegations came out, which notably, I don't know if you noticed, Mercedes, I haven't seen as many any new allegations. A lot of that seems to have died down, and now Pete has hit Capitol Hill, meeting with a number of senators yesterday alone. And it looks like at the same time, then we have a ProPublica hit piece. They were trying to suggest that he fact-checked whether or not he went to West Point, and turns out that the egg is on their face. It turns out that, yes, he went to West Point. He didn't wait for West Point to clear up the confusion. He himself put out his own record, his own certificate on social media and said, oh, actually, here's the evidence. And ProPublica looks like the ridiculous one in this case.
Yeah, I got to tell you, I do feel that Pete Hegseth's confirmation is at a much better place than it was a couple weeks ago as well. I do think that, it just shows how ProPublica, which we know is not a media outlet in any way, it's not a news organization, it's not journalism, it is complete opposition research for the left. All they do is target conservatives, all they do is target Republicans. That's all they do. Yeah. And so I think it's very discouraging to watch, that there you are. They were planning their hit piece. It's fantastic that Pete Hegseth was able to say, wait a second, no, I did get accepted into West Point, so just back off. What I'm looking for right now is that you've got, Joni Ernst kind of like learned a lesson in the sense that she went public, and then there was a quick media campaign against her. So we'll see what happens. It's going to be a wait and see, but it does look like Pete Hegseth is in the process, getting closer and closer to being able to get confirmed.
Well, we're going to have more on this story and lots of other stories coming up. Folks, stay with us. It is 5:21. All right, so Mercedes, continuing with the nominees, Kimberly Guilfoyle has been named the ambassador to Greece. We know Kimberly Guilfoyle. She's been close in the Trump orbit, and she was dating Donald Trump Jr. But I guess the intrigue is that they are no longer together. Do you have any intel on this?
Oh, well, I hope I never report for TMZ or something like that. But look, I obviously I know Don, I know Kimberly for a very long time, and you never want to see friends break up, but things happen in life that we cannot control. And we've been seeing that Don Jr. has been hanging out with his new romance socialite Bettina Anderson, who's known as a Palm Beach socialite, because they do exist down there, and there's a lot of them. And so, for Kimberly, I have to say, look, she worked really, really hard for President Trump in his all of his campaigns. She was always out there honing in on getting votes for President Trump. So I think it was kind of the departing gift. It was the, here you go, here's the ambassadorship to Greece for Kimberly Guilfoyle. Get out of, she's getting out of the country. I think she's been very respectful and quiet during this process, in the sense that, she hasn't really talked about the breakup. But I will say that when I saw Don Jr. put out the tweet of, well, she's going to be great for America, as a scorched woman, I would have been the one to be like, I would have not been very nice. I think I would have used some expletive words, towards him, and be like, don't, don't
leave me alone.
Me. Exactly.
Like, leave me out of this,
exactly.
Don. I'm not spilling any beans.
Exactly.
I'm quiet. You're quiet.
Yeah, exactly. Let me go to Greece, find myself a hot Greek boyfriend. It'll be great.
I think she's going to find a billionaire out there, either a Greek billionaire or a billionaire vacationing in Greece. I think the stars are aligning.
Well, I just want her to find a great guy who loves God, who brings her to the faith. I think that's more important than anything else. And I really do think, she does find joy in that, because look, he's Don Jr., he's incredibly charming. Okay. He has so much charisma, like his dad. I don't want to get into his personal life. Let him do whatever he wants to do. He's a great dad of 5 kids. And you know what? I don't know. Just let them be, and let's move on. Let's just move on.
They're obviously moving on. As you mentioned, he's been out and about with Bettina Anderson. She's a very good-looking woman. We'll see what happens and kind of continue to
the good-looking women get old at one point, Patrice. They get old.
Well, they do. That said, this may just be a new kind of refresh, moving on situation. We'll see how it turns out. All right, folks, stay with us. We're going to continue to follow all of the nominations and also the different transition news. We've got some really big headline news about the FBI coming up on the other side. Stay with us. It's O'Connor and Company at 5:30.
WMAL-FM, Woodbridge, Washington, a Cumulus media station.
Making sense of the news.
News Talk 105.9.
News now.
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
Good morning. It is 5:37 WMAL 105.9. You're listening to O'Connor and Company. I'm here, Patrice Onwuka, your usual Friday gal, sitting in for a vacationing Larry O'Connor. And as usual, we've got Mercedes Schlapp here on Thursdays. Good morning, Mercedes. All right. Now let's give you guys a rundown of what we've got coming up, who we have coming up on this morning's show. Let's see, at 7:05, Carrie Pickett from the Washington Times. She's going to be here talking about the resignation of FBI Director Chris Wray. 7:35, Lieutenant Colonel Stuart Scheller, a Marine who was imprisoned for talking about the military. He's going to join us to talk about Pete Hegseth. At 8:05, KT McFarland, usually here on Thursday, she'll give us her updates as well. And 8:35, Virginia Attorney General Jason Mayoras. All right, Mercedes. Well, the big news, the big headline that everybody is waking up to, if you didn't hear about this yesterday, is that FBI Director Christopher Wray has resigned, or he will be resigning. He has said in an email to staff yesterday afternoon that he's stepping down from his position at the head of the Bureau. Next month, before President Trump takes office next month. He's going to be leaving at the end of the Biden administration before his term expires. He has served now for 7 years in the job. Let me quote from his email. After weeks of careful thought, I've decided the right thing for the Bureau is for me to serve until the end of the current administration in January, then step down. My goal is to keep the focus on our mission, the indispensable work you're doing on behalf of the American people every day. He's writing this to FBI staff. In my view, this is the best way to avoid dragging the Bureau deeper into the fray while reinforcing the values and principles that are so important to how we do our work. Boy, oh boy, if there was not an email that missed the mark, because everything he claimed they're doing is exactly what they have not done. What is your initial response to hearing that he stepped down? Are you surprised, or, it was a matter of time?
I think I've become like Kamala Harris. I'm just joyful. I'm just so joyful. No, look, let's remember the FBI director position was supposed to be this nonpartisan position, right? These individuals like James Comey, Christopher Wray, they go from working from a Democrat president to a Republican president. Same thing. They literally transcend and go into the next administration. But what we have seen under FBI Director Christopher Wray, this is obviously before that James Comey. I mean, these individuals went after conservatives. And when you think of the fact that they called parents domestic terrorists, that they went after pro-life activists, that they had field offices under his control that investigated these radical, what they call the radical traditionalist Catholic, the trad Catholics, as they call, who go to Latin Mass. They covered up for the evidence of Hunter Biden's crimes. I mean, the list goes on and on and on of the failures of the FBI leadership under Christopher Wray. And they add to that, they raided Mar-a-Lago, a president's home, which of course they treated Joe Biden very differently, and then leaked the photos to the New York Times. I mean, you can't make this up. So I think
photos,
yes. So I think I do think that we're at a point that's why you're seeing that President Trump made the pick of Kash Patel, because there needs to be accountability, there needs to be transparency, there needs to be real reform. And we saw President-elect Trump in his statement, or basically saying we're going to end the weaponization of the Bureau. And Kash Patel is the most qualified to lead the FBI. And his Donald Trump's truth post is, to say the least, is very long, basically saying that it's become the United States Department of Injustice, and it is. It's why this resignation is critical, because we've seen the failures of Christopher Wray in leading this department.
Well, let me pick up a couple of threads from President Trump's post. Not only did he say it's a great day for America, he said, I just don't know what happened to him, but now we will restore the rule of law for all Americans. He talks about the vast powers used by the FBI to threaten and destroy the many innocent Americans, some of whom will never be able to recover from what has been done to them. As you know, as everyone knows, President Trump says, I have great respect for the rank and file of the FBI, and they have great respect for me. They want to see these changes every bit as much as I do. But more importantly, the American people are demanding a strong but fair system of justice. We want our FBI back. That is a snippet from President Trump's Truth Post in response to the resignation of Christopher Wray. Something I also saw interesting when earlier this week, and maybe this was a little bit of a nudge, is that Senator Grassley actually sent a letter to Christopher Wray listing out the litany of major failures under Chris Wray's leadership. He talked about the failure for the FBI to vet the Afghanistan evacuees, some of whom had actual terrorist backgrounds or connections to terrorists. He talked about the scrutinization of President Trump. You mentioned the Mar-a-Lago raid and the authorization to use lethal force. That could have gone really badly at that moment. Sitting on mountains of evidence against the Biden family for their bribery schemes, and the fact that Christopher Wray was brought in, as Senator Grassley said, I presided over your confirmation hearing, and I thought you were going to bring the change that former FBI Director James Comey was not able to do. I thought you were going to clean things up, and instead you presided probably over an even worse tenure over the FBI. Well, this is going to be the big news, obviously going for the rest of this week. I'm sure, although something even bigger could happen tomorrow. But this is why Kash Patel is going to be it's clearing the deck for Kash Patel. Patel's confirmation, which is really important.
Yeah.
We're going to have more on this. We're going to be talking to Katie McFarland a little bit later at 8:05, I believe, or 8:35. So we'll ask her a little bit about this. But folks, stay with us. It's O'Connor and Company at 8:44.
Mark Levin, weekdays 6 till 9 p.m.
On News Talk 105.9 WMAL.
Making sense of the news.
What's your reaction to Ray's resignation?
We look forward to a very smooth transition at the FBI, and I'll be ready to go on day one.
There you go. Boom. That's Kash Patel responding to the big news yesterday that FBI Director Christopher Wray was stepping down, clearing the way for Kash Patel to, once confirmed, to become the next FBI Director and clean house. So, Mercy, something else that happened yesterday, I was keeping an eye on this, which is really just Chuck Schumer, last gasp of air, trying to ram through another nomination in the labor department or in the labor field, labor policy, to really tie the hands of President Trump when it comes to a lot of the important economic policy he was going to do. Lauren McFerrin, she's currently the chair of the National Labor Relations Board. They do a lot of the wacky stuff we've seen around small businesses, franchising, independent contracting. And so Chuck Schumer tried to get his nomination through because right now the math is in favor of Democrats, and he failed. He was going to take advantage of the fact that some Republicans have had senioritis. Some of those who are moving into the administration have not been around for all of the nomination votes, and so some sneaky Democratic judges have gotten in there. And he thought this was going to work, but guess who saved the day? In a 49-50 vote, it was Kyrsten Sinema and Joe Manchin that blocked her nomination.
And I believe J.D. Vance actually flew back to vote as well when it came to this nominee and blocking this nominee of Lauren McFerrin on the National Labor Relations Board. So, this is why you want the Republicans to be ready to go. We've seen, for example, the Democrats really shoving through these judges in the last minute. They're pushing as many judges as they can to the finish line, which I believe, I keep believing that the judges in our country, by far the most powerful people in our country, which is scary to think. But in this particular case, I think the only one who did not vote and someone with strong union ties was Senator Roger Marshall from Kansas, who's a Republican as well. And they were really hoping that the Democrats thought that they could install McFerrin as the current chair for another 5 years. That didn't happen. Bye-bye. It's great. Republicans are coming back to town.
That's right. And I mean, this is important. We always talk about the bureaucrats in these different agencies who wield a lot of power. And we have seen under McFerrin, she has literally tipped the hand in favor of labor unions. And some of the stuff is ridiculous. At IWF, I've been covering this issue with my colleagues, and shout out to so many groups, business groups, right of center groups that really came together and said, hey, Senator, you guys, this is an important vote. If you want the America First agenda to pass, if you want to see President Trump's economic policy agenda pass and not be strangled or straddled or thwarted by a Biden holdover, then it was important for her, for them to vote yesterday and to show up. And that happened. What's
going to be interesting is obviously the pick. President Trump's pick for Secretary of Labor, Lori Chavez de Remer, who's a pro-union Republican, really caused a lot of conservatives to say, wait a second, why are you moving forward with her? Because I know that obviously President Trump and his campaign tried to bring in union voters to support him. But at the same time, there is this fine line with how that's going to work with businesses and how far you're going to go basically in the other direction to support unions. So this is something, I think this debate about where the party is, where the Republican Party is when it comes to union votes, and really building up that coalition is going to be fascinating to watch.
Well, it will be. I mean, I think some folks have recognized she voted for the PRO Act, which is a very big piece of legislation that's a huge union giveaway, and also would be really devastating to independent contractors, small business owners, freelancers, like the 70 million people who are gig workers, Uber drivers, all of those. And so it's I think, she understands as a small business person the impact of these regulations, and we have seen too many strangling regulations on small businesses, on franchises, on just the business sector. And so, I think it's going to be an interesting dance over the next few years. We'll see how this all plays out. But I do think it's great to see Kyrsten Sinema as a parting gift, I guess, maybe, and or at least Joe Manchin to come together and say, you know what, we're actually going to. They're going to give our thumb our nose
and they're
at
both,
our former
think about
colleagues.
think about it. They're both out. Manchin obviously being replaced by Justice, and in West Virginia, he's a Republican, but Kyrsten Sinema replaced by Ruben Gallegos, who's a far left. I mean, he is a huge Democrat. So losing Kyrsten Sinema is very obviously we have the majority in the Senate, but it's disappointing that the Republicans don't have that seat in Arizona.
No, I totally agree. I mean, it's going to be important that Republicans, show up to bat when these big bills come up. I mean, I'm looking ahead to what's going to happen early next year, and you're going to have a couple of bites at the apple for big pieces of legislation that can move the Trump agenda. I'm seeing either the tax cuts that are expiring next year. Hello, everybody! If you didn't know, you're going to get a tax increase if Congress does not extend President Trump's 2017 tax cuts. So there's going to be that fight, and then there's going to be obviously immigration, tying up the border. Like, let's stop talking about immigration bills and bad immigration bills. There's going to be an opportunity, and I think appetite to get both of those moving, and early ones for President Trump. And so Republicans are going to need to be tight and stay on message and on board, because they're not going to get any help from the left on any of these agenda items.
No, and you're going to see moderate Republicans. It's going to be interesting how they're going to respond or how they're going to vote, because they want their pet projects in there when you have, DOJ trying to cut things out left and right. But I was talking to one House member yesterday who said it's going to be a very big reconciliation bill. It looks like there could be two reconciliation bills. There's some infighting as to if that's going to happen or not happen.
Well, we have all the details and more. This is why you can geek out with very smart policy ladies
like me and you.
we're such
geeks. I love it.
And we can make it understandable. All right, but it is 5:55. We've got to pay some bills. Let's get over to Jamie Whitten in the Hadid Carpet Cleaning Traffic Center.